Good morning. We're here today with Chip Mellor, President and General Counsel of the Institute for Justice. Issues advocacy is generally pretty serious business, and people who do it take it, pretty seriously, and that's their approach. But you have more of an irreverent approach and add a little bit of comedy, and I'm wondering if you could address why.
Well, our motto is we change the world and have fun doing it. In the process, we take on very, very serious issues. They're issues of tremendous consequence to our clients and, frankly, to the country. But in pursuing those issues very seriously, we don't take ourselves so seriously. And that's what makes us, I think, in the long run, very effective against very enormous adversity. How
much time do you spend advocating versus, raising funds and awareness for the Institute for Justice?
Well, the Institute started with 5 people. And in 1991. At that time, I was a full-fledged litigator in addition to managing and raising the money for the organization. But of course, in the last 18 years, we've grown a lot. We have offices in 4 states. We're affiliated with the University of Chicago Law School. And we have 35 people here at headquarters. So I can no longer spend the time in the court that I once did. About 6 or 7 years ago, it became obvious that litigation would no longer be something I could pursue the way I once did. As a result, most of my time is spent managing litigation, setting strategy for the organization, raising money, and doing sort of public speaking type advocacy.
Wanted to ask how you find your cases.
Well, we have the ability to go out and find cases and offer our services to prospective clients. We represent them for free, and as a public interest organization, we can solicit clients. So the key for us is to find clients whose plights best embody the principles that we're seeking to vindicate. So we look for sympathetic clients, outrageous facts, evil villains, and relatively simple facts. And when we find those ingredients, we can take a case from pretty much anywhere in the country and elevate it to national significance as part of the campaign we're waging.
And that leads me to my next question, which is, how do you, outside of a big court case, so you take on cases that are considered hard to win, so how do you measure success outside of a big win?
Every case we take on is an uphill fight. If the law is what it should be, then we wouldn't exist. So we face tremendous sort of institutional inertia as well as very well-heeled adversaries when we go into court. As a result, each case is part of a larger strategic campaign. That campaign involves not only litigation, but communications through the media, grassroots organizing, strategic research, and on all of those fronts we can see progress, sometimes incremental, sometimes decisive, in shaping the terms of the debate. We set precedent. That's the ideal goal, and we do that with pretty good success. But in the meantime, we also secure legislative changes, we secure changes in public opinion, and we like to think that we, in the long run, will change the climate of public opinion in the country.
Do you have an ultimate goal?
We have the goal of doing our very best legal work in order to secure the freedoms that we think are most vital to the future of this country. The ability to earn an honest living without arbitrary government interference, to own and enjoy private property, to speak freely, both in political environments and commercial environments, and to educate your kids as you choose. With those basic attributes of the American dream very much at risk today, we think we've got our work cut out for us. But we see progress in each of those areas, and our goal is to incrementally continue to push that pendulum in the direction of freedom and away from big government and ultimately the infringements that big government causes on those liberties.
When did you start with the irreverent descriptions on the web and the jib-jab-like videos that we see? And I'd like to know from you what the reaction has been.
Right from the start, the Institute for Justice embodied a culture that promoted hard work, but also an irreverent approach to ourselves and sometimes the plight that we face when we confront adversity. And as a result, people oftentimes would play pranks on one another. There are bets that when people lose them, sometimes the loser ends up in rather funny situations. That evolved into learning how to promote some of the ideas we do with a little more humor, which we've done through some videos and different publications that we've done. The upshot of it all is that in order to be an effective public interest litigator, you've got to be resilient, because you are going to lose, and when you lose, it's going to be very painful. being able to draw on that irreverence or that esprit de corps bred through humor really enables you to be resilient and get ready for the next fight.
So you have this approach, and how do you make sure you're being taken seriously?
If you look at the legal work that we do, you'll find that it's absolutely top-notch. And we get that feedback not only from courts and even our adversaries, our opposing counsel, but also through the victories that we secure. We never settle for anything less than the absolute best we can do professionally. That's never compromised by the humor that we bring internally to our culture. If you think about it this way, when you're in the midst of the fight, you're putting forward your best weapons. One of the weapons we have is very, very effective legal advocacy. Another weapon that we have is this internal strength that comes from a supportive culture that in part is a joyous culture, one where we're having fun at what we do.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
It was my pleasure. Thank you for taking the time to come by today.